to me, as I began surrendering to the practice and looking at what the practice was really all about, the many things it was about, the one was, if we practice diligently and we surrender, we allow ourselves to be in an inner reality that does not have to be matched by an outer reality. In other words, when we look back at our lifetime, in this lifetime, the one we have conscious memory of, even the one we have unconscious memory of, the one that our nervous system has by far dictated, and we look at the effect that our outer reality has had on us. We do not judge it. We simply look at the effect it has had on us. And we look at the traumatic effect that it has had on us. The trauma that was caused, the blocks that were put up. If you think back to the beginning of the talks, the pylons that were formed. They were formed, obviously, because we've talked about all the things we've talked about, the space of ignorance, lack of understanding, lack of acceptance, unconditional love, and so forth. But they were also formed by a general dynamic in which our inner reality did not match our outer reality, or our outer reality did not match our inner reality. What we were inside did not match what we were experiencing to some degree, and we surrendered control to the outer reality. The outer reality could be our parents being alcoholics or abusive. Our mother or father screaming or yelling. An abusive home, poverty, abandonment. All these situations, infinite in number, too many to mention, all provide us lessons of learning. But now that we know what the practice can do, these lessons of learning can become the past. For if we practice, and through that practice achieve higher and higher levels of inner peace, the outer reality then becomes subordinate to the inner reality, and we are truly a master. You are not a master until your outer reality no longer affects your inner reality. Once your inner reality is no longer affected by your outer reality, you are a master. You are no longer controlled by what you perceive or what is happening around you. You are only under the control of God, which is the force of all creation, which comes from the space of unconditional love and acceptance. Which means achieving this is the goal of everything that I've taught you. It's the goal of the practice. Even once you've achieved this, does it mean you no longer have to practice? No. I have a man who teaches me guitar. His name is Michael Bay. Maybe some of you have seen him or some of you have heard of him. He's a professional guitarist. He's amazing. And I walk in and I see him practicing his scales, which is what I practice on a scale of 1 to 10, and a guitarist, 10 being a professional, 1 being a novice. I humbly consider myself to be a 1. He is doing what I am doing. So, as I ask you, as these teachings have been brought to you, reinforced in you, awakened in you, the process is, the name is irrelevant. You are here to be an example of this practice. Because you will undoubtedly, even if you are in and out of this space of inner peace and outer peace, inner peace and outer, I should say inner peace and outer reaction, I can tell you, just because I know that you're in this room, you are experiencing this inner peace to a much higher reality than most people are, or you wouldn't even be here taking the time to become conscious of how to experience it more. You wouldn't even know that it exists. For most people, this is all there is. Maybe they have had a moment of that, and they consider that moment a miracle. Now, I'm not saying that they're overstating it. From their perspective, it is. What I'm saying is that in this space, the more of this that exists in you, relatively speaking, the more of these you are conscious of happening all the time. They are a natural byproduct of being in a space of inner peace. I have seen many of you, and I've worked with many of you, and we've done many works on past lives. And there have been many of you who have had past lives in which you were clergy, or you were monks, or you were convent. It's not unusual. We've all been everything, and many of those we remember. It's easy to be in here when this matches this. It's easy to be in a space of inner peace if you are a monk in retreat. And there's purpose to that. That's one of the reasons they give their life to that. They want to completely embrace that and indulge that with minimal distraction. So they don't get married, they don't have kids, they don't have jobs, they don't engage the outer reality a whole much. They create as much of this, like this, as they can so they can get to this. And there is great worth in that. However, I know there is a greater worth in one who can be in this with this all around it. If you remember from the talks we had the last time and the time before, it is about being this for all this that God surrounds you with. And shining the light on as many as God puts in your relative field of life. Not because there's anything wrong with darkness, but because the light is the inner peace. To not only be an example of what it can become in some people, but to be an example that it exists at all for most. Do the words "they know not what they do" have a lot more meaning now? This is what they meant. They don't even know this exists. Therefore, their acts are based on this outer chaotic reality. And for that reason, most people's acts are of this outer chaotic reality. They are irrational. They are metaphorically like that song you just heard. And when you are in that space, you are in that erratic space, and you not only feel the sense of your own erratic acts, but you feel the sense of others' erratic acts around you. And it becomes overwhelming. And it's good that it becomes overwhelming and fearful and chaotic, because where does that inevitably drive you? In. After you've tried blaming everyone, after you've tried making everyone else responsible, after you've gone through all the healing that you naturally need to go through, and that you've exhausted those possibilities, we all end up going back in. Because that is the only place you can stay forever and be one with that created you. And in that space of inner peace, you can then look out at all of it, and you don't hear the song the way you heard it. You hear it as a beautiful, beautiful, and you see it and you experience it as a beautiful work of art. One created by the master, which Beethoven was definitely one of the musical masters of all time. But you don't hear that in the song if you're fighting to meditate in the middle of it. You're bothered, you're irritated, you're thrown off a little bit. You can't be in love with that when you're in it. You can only be completely and unconditionally in love with that when you're inside, in the place where conditions no longer affect you. People are constantly looking for ways to manipulate this outer reality to make it what they feel it should be to achieve peace, and they blame that lack of peace on others around them. First of all, there is no blame to be placed. Second of all, you are missing the point of the outer reality that you are currently placed in, not by coincidence. Whether the outer reality is your own physical body or whether the outer reality is a current situation, relationship, job, environment, whatever, it's the same. It's all metaphorical, all the way down and all the way out. Which means, although we do not know with certainty the expanse of an infinite universe, although we do not know with certainty how it works, we do know this, do we not? We do know that with inner peace, if we are practicing inner peace and we are in that inner peace, we see the world in a way that the coincidences become fact and the possibilities become certainties. And the inevitability becomes nothing more than a moment that will happen at some point. And the need to achieve and want and have ceases to be in our life. And we become timeless witnesses. So what we do not know out here, we know here. And this is why I look at how this has controlled humanity for so long. And when I was called to teach this, and I was called to teach others to teach this, how can you feel there's a choice in that? And if you are here, then you were called to this, and you were called to teach others that. And there is no choice in that. It's what you know you were put here to do, and it's all good. When you look at what's happening from this perspective, it's overwhelming. So many infinite number of things have to happen just the right way for something you want to happen. That's why I stay here, where I don't have to want anything to happen. I practice staying there in any environment. That's the practice. Because although there may be worth and benefit, and this is not a judgment, it's simply a comparison of what's in the greater good. Although there's a place for everything. But you're not in a convent, you're sitting with me. Although there is greater good for those situations, and those are all part of us reaching this point, I believe we're here together because we've already gone through that. And it is time for us to show it is possible in the real world, in society, not in isolation, where we live with brothers and sisters that do not practice this with us, where we live with brothers and sisters that steal from us, that betray us, that treat us unkindly, we must be the pastors and priests of this reality. We must be those who show unconditional love and acceptance in this reality. We must be that example. It is a choiceless surrender. For anyone who would have a choice to take on this practice would choose not to. I had a conversation with my mother and my father. I was filming the pilot, and I was, really had the knowing that this is it for me, that this is my place in the world. This is for me this time around. This is what I'm doing. And my mother and father, being good mother and fathers that they are, they said to me, "Are you sure this just isn't something you want to do? Are you sure you're really being called?" Pretty solid question, don't you think? And I looked at him and I said, if it were something I wanted to do, it would be motivated by ego. That's what motivates us to do things we want to do. And I looked at him and I said, why would I want to do this? I've got, okay? And I'm going to make an analogy to myself, and please don't take it literally. Think metaphorically with me. I'm never speaking in just words. In this reality, out here, in the perceptive reality, I'm a king. How many of you would leave the reality that I have, perceptively? How many of you would let it go? I work in a peaceful place. I get to be with people I love. It's very, relatively speaking, the temperature's controlled, the people I see are of a certain... I'm completely comfortable. I can support my family. I can go on some vacations. I can live modestly, but I live comfortably. That's all that matters to me. I'm not into that stuff. Everything in my ego said, are you freaking crazy? Stay there. Who cares what this has to offer? You've got everything you want. You remember the saying that Jesus said it's harder for a king to enter heaven than it is for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle? That's what I'm an example of. I've got it all. Great family, great parents. And I'm going, I got to teach this. And to teach this, you've got to let all this go. Which means I have to let go, as I've told you, of my wife, my children. I have to let go of financial retirement. I have to let go of all that. Well, you say, well, why? Why do you have to? Because if you hold on to any of that, you can't really be here. You're not the real deal. You're up there talking about it. And that's bullshit. You got to be it. I refuse to be somebody that just talks about it. You've got to be it with everything that you can let go of. You've got to be it. And so, I did. And this is where I live. Now, about 99% of the time. And of course, the answer is, do I have any regrets? No. Because the amount of these that I see happen every day, miracles that happen every day, it's worth 1,000,000 of these. The amount of lives I see changed by this every day, it's worth 1,000,000 of these. And guess what? those experiences that I get to have, now that I'm accumulating some external experiences, okay, a new outer reality, okay, based on an internal peace, all right? That new external reality is based on an inner peace. Which means you leave the outer reality, you go to the inner reality, you develop an inner peace. Then you start experiencing your outer reality from an inner reality of peace, and your outer reality becomes completely peaceful and amazing, and you see the divinity and the divine order in the outer reality, and no longer is it chaotic. It's a direct reflection of the inner reality. And upon seeing that cycle come full circle and seeing it that way, I can only hypothesize with a high level of certainty that the universe is simply that on a very, very large scale, of which I don't need to know anything about, because if I know it about this, I know it about that. So, why are we trying to fly to the moon when we have people starving? Why are we trying to escape a planet and find other forms of life, if other forms of life exist, when we haven't even found a way to exist with each other? Why are we still believing in belief systems relating us to God in a way that's punitive and based on sin? Because we haven't even gotten this simple thing done. Why? Because I'm telling you, everybody wants to look this way. And there's no answers when you start in that space. Only questions. And the biggest question you can tell that starts from looking out instead of looking in is this. Why? But why? But why? Because you're missing the freaking point. But if I just knew why, oh baloney if you just knew why. If you just knew why, you'd have another why, and another why, and another why, and another why, and another why. Which is again the profound truth and the phrase that I was led to start this whole teaching with many, many years ago. It seems like forever. Which is, I don't know. That gets me out of that. All right? I don't know. Don't ask me why. You want to learn how to get here, you want to learn how to be here, you want to learn how to stay here, and you want to learn to see the outer by being here, from seeing here, I'm your guy. You want to start here, stay here, I'm not your guy. Good luck. Catch you in a couple lifetimes. Maybe you'll be ready then. This is the practice. And you have to learn how to practice not just in moments of peace. You've got to be conscious of the practice in moments of turmoil, in moments of stress, in moments of death, in moments of sickness, in moments of birth, in moments of anger. You've got to remember that they are simply temptations to test the practice. They are not there to hurt you. They are not there to cut you down. They are not there because they're bad or anything else. They're there to practice. So any repetitive emotional pattern that you are experiencing suffering around, or any repetitive situational pattern that keeps coming up, would you please, for the love of God, practice? Put me out of business. We have a world to affect. These teachings are powerful. Get it? So, in this space, as you enter into this space, we have called this space the inner space. It has a lot of names. I feel what I've been led to teach is this is purely the intuitive space. When you are living intuitively, you are living in a space of inner peace. It is the sense, the infinite sense that overrides. It has the power to override all other senses when it is practiced. But the only way to practice it is in the context of it's all good. It's all good. It's life. You know, I had an amazing visit with a woman today. It was very, very powerful. And she's going through incredible release of, and this is, you know, everyone's in their own space. And I'm not judging this. I just want everyone to know the effect that it might have had on you, or it could be having on you, or maybe it had. And it was all about her initial experience with religion, because she came into this lifetime very enlightened, and her family was very religious. And she didn't really understand religion. It didn't really make sense, because religion was supposed to connect her with God, but it was based on sin. But then they taught her that, you know, if you believed in Jesus Christ, that Jesus Christ died and took all the sins away. So she was in this turmoil of, and she wasn't even aware of this. This was all unconscious that I was pulling out of her and talking to her about. That if I believe in Jesus Christ, and for that reason all my sins are taken away, why do I have to keep going back to the church and asking for forgiveness for my sins? Yeah. Repenting. Why do I have to keep repenting? I thought no more sin exists. And so this came up as a way to help her understand that, you know, when God spoke through me that, no, religion was created by man to help him cope with life. He was overwhelmed with life. He couldn't handle going from that, why, to, I'll make it smaller, to the IDK, the I don't know. So he created all kinds of belief systems to help him cope with that why and explain that why away. There's huge consequences to not having a why, isn't there? But the problem with the way that she interpreted it, and I make it personal, because sometimes it works beautifully for so many people, and it's not a judgment, but in this situation, it created a separation between her and God. Because then she got locked in the flesh. And the priest was asking her to repent for her sins. She was 7. How much negative intention can a 7-year-old really have? And so she literally made stuff up. Because when she said, I don't have anything to say, he said, well, there has to be something you've done wrong. And that was literally one of the reasons she was caught in the cycle of sickness. Because she couldn't be better. Just an example of how things can get kind of twisted. How this outer reality can be very tempting for this inner reality. And we can find belief systems to help us deal with this outer reality. When we're not supposed to deal with the outer reality, we're supposed to create an inner reality that's there for us, not even create it, revisit, stay in an inner reality that then allows us to see this without the same strife. It doesn't give us a why, but it gives us a peace that there's an order. I got news for you, Batman. That's as good as it gets. Because once you accept the order, then you can start to see the divinity of the order. And once you see the divinity of the order, then, as I've said before, you are truly experiencing God. But whether you are given a life where, yeah, you have some minor hurdles in your life, I've had some chronic pain, this or that, but in general, I've lived a very perceptively happy life. No one beat me, no one hit me, no one was that hard on me. I was harder on myself than anybody. You still got to give it up. No one gets through these little gates with any baggage or ownership of anything, good or bad, because good and bad in this space do not exist. So judgment of any kind will bump you up against this. It's all just life in here. This is what the practice is all about. Now, the cool part about this is, this way of living, okay, you naturally need less. You need less from those around you, okay, which releases a lot of tension immediately. You need less, period. Because when you're at peace, you don't need to be insatiated. You don't need all your receptors full of relationships or television or activity or whatever else you're plugging into. Sex, whatever. It naturally brings everything to a space of moderation, naturally. And in that space, it is naturally sustainable. You will have less health problems. I should say you will have less unnecessary health problems, less unnecessary suffering, less unnecessary emotional issues. And in that space, when you have less of those, you will require and take less from this. Now, I'm not saying that, everyone's going to be here 99% of the time. I would be ecstatic if, in general, the earth reality was there 5% of the time, 10% of the time. Now, you ever hear the story about I can't remember if it's either 10 or 100, but I think it's 10, the 10 monkeys? You ever hear the story about the 10 monkeys?
It's 100.
Is it 100 monkeys? 100 monkeys?
100 monkeys.
That once you get a certain number of people to do something, it creates an inertia, and then that inertia then becomes catapulted in the majority. I'm not the only one with the message. I don't claim to be the only message, but I feel like the message that comes through me is practical and pragmatic, and it makes sense. And it supersedes any religious belief. Any religious belief can't argue with that at all. And every religious belief should start with that. But the crazy part is, when you start with an inner peace, this is the funny part, when you start with an inner peace, when you start with a practice of inner peace, when you really start with that, except for societal, except to be social, the first thing that feels threatened is that. Because the church becomes within you. Not that you don't enjoy that, but without you needing that, and let's face it, that's a business, whether you want to believe it or not. And it has to be. It has overhead, it has expenses. There has to be a money equation in anything in the physical reality. I don't think churches are naturally greedy or anything else. I'm not putting that label on them at all. I just think that they have an overhead and they need money. But when the church is in there, and you don't need that to establish that, that may augment, the experience. You're in church all the time. And that's when people ask me, what church do you go to? And I say, I don't. They say, why? I say, I live in my church. I live in my temple. This is your temple. Think about how you treat it. This is the place in this moment you are worshiping life. You are experiencing life. Is it really, if it's your intention to get to IP, to get to inner peace, can you do it while you're treating your body harshly or poorly? No. This is a space of unity. Body, mind, spirit, one. And this is where I find many people who are spiritual people can't get into this space on a regular basis because they can only get into it when they're in spirit. They can only get into it when they leave their body. And that's the old experience of death. I can be in a heavenly space once I leave this body. There's some ignorance in that statement. It's not what I teach. We go as a unit. Doesn't mean you're not going to leave your body at some point, but I'm not leaving my body to be in heaven on earth. I'm in heaven on earth now. And I'll leave my body in a space of heaven on earth, and I'll go to another space, heaven and somewhere else, but it'll still be the inner practice that I practice for all eternity. With whatever consciousness I am in that space, I will continue to practice unconditional love, acceptance, and inner peace. No matter what form, or without form, that's still a form, I will still practice that. This is the time I wanted to take with you after the last talk, and I had every expectation of doing visits, but I get up in front of you, and as you guys know, something takes over, and it's not my show. And this is my life. This is very symbolic of plans in my life. These are my plans. I have them, and then they're gone. This is your life. And I think the symbolism of what happened today is, my number's been called, hasn't it? I'm called. My number's been called. No matter what happens to me, this is where I go. This is how it goes for me. I'm in a space of choicelessness. Doesn't mean if it even were to mean the end of this physical lifetime for me because of it, it doesn't matter to me. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it wouldn't matter if it did. If you're hearing this and you've been coming and you've been listening and you've been seeing me or talking with me and learning about this process, you're either in here with me sometimes or you're around me enough and in your own space sometimes. Your number's being called. You may not know how or when yet, but it's been called. And if there's any doubt in your mind, I'm calling all of you. I'm calling all of you out. I don't know what my plans are, everybody. I don't know what God has in store for me. I love you all. I love being here, but I just don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. I just don't know. And I'm being honest with you. I'm not prophesizing one way or another, but I just don't know. So take advantage of this time we have together. It's precious. Take advantage of the time you have with each other. Take advantage of the moments that you have to practice this. And practice it, and practice it, and practice it while I'm here to ask questions. And while I'm here to do visits with you all, and while I'm here to spend time with you. And then practice it forever. But you gotta start practicing it. I will never tell you that coming to hear me talk is the beginning or the end of everything, or anything. It's not. I'm a catalyst for what is in you. But eventually that fire must learn how to burn sustainably. And the sustainability of this whole process is fueled by the practice of this process itself. There is no other greater purpose in life. Don't kid yourself. You'll be walking down a path that's going to be a dead end, which is fine. You'll walk back and get on the main road, but there's no reason to take all those extra routes anymore. Be in your temple. Practice it. Practice what you're doing. Practice the moments that are around you. There are no coincidences. Things aren't happening around you for no reason at all. The moments you've had in your life, the moments you're having, the moments you will have, they are divinely planned. They are all perfect. Don't be too afraid to stop and take a look and just practice. Especially those fun environments like the one with the music, which, by the way, I had no intention on playing. That was a CD I couldn't. That was the one I was supposed to put in. And I've never listened. I mean, I've listened to it, but I did not remember that was that number. It's what it's meant to be. We're meant to learn how to practice in any environment. These practices I've taught you are to help you live eternally, at peace, in any environment, in any form. They are all inclusive. We will draw numbers next time, unless something comes up, but this just needed to be, I needed to show you that outer inner reality to help you all understand what you're experiencing, because I'm not teaching you this to sit in your house. I'm teaching you this to be in the world and bring unconditional love and acceptance to everyone around you, whether they know you're doing it or not. Because they don't need to know you're doing it. Because they're not even aware of what you're even doing. How can they be aware you're doing it when they don't even know what you're doing exists or that it even has a meaning? This is the farthest thing from most people's mind, at least 95% of the time. How much compassion can we have for that? How much compassion? That's where my heart, bleeds. So much compassion that it's just happening around them all the time. They don't even know that it exists, let alone enjoy it. So the next time you're experiencing an outer reality that tempts you out of your practice, stay in your practice. Stay in your practice. They know not what they do. Be at peace. Be at peace. Speak the truth. Speak the truth. It's not about being a doormat. You speak the truth. You bring awareness. But you don't expect it to do anything. Because they may be so far in a space of density that your words are one of the million times they're going to hear it. But if no one says it once, there's never a millionth time when it works. Every piece of stone can be broken. It just needs to be impacted a little at a time.